Hey guys, welcome back to Get Into Nature. Get into the number 2 nature vlog. So thank you for stopping by. So you saw the numbers that we're going through as the B-roll was going through. So what do they represent? So 500 billion cups, non-reusable paper cups with plastic liners from coffee stores are generated a year that go into landfills because they're not recyclable. I didn't know that. 91% of the plastics are not being recycled, and they're not being recycled when you think they are being recycled. There's a whole nother politics behind that. You can go Google that on the internet. 2.9 billion Starbucks cups are generated and used daily. So why am I telling you this? Because part of my goal of Get Into the Nature vlog is to document my journey on becoming a better photographer for our trip to Everest Base Camp. And my goal is to document that trip, but also is to inspire people with amazing pictures of nature to get people involved in protecting Mother Nature. So let's think about that when you're doing your day-to-day travels and getting coffee cups. So what can you do? Well, one, you see a lot of these. People use these cups, Yeti, free commercial for Yeti, but these things are great. You can go into Starbucks and I think you get 10 cents off your cup of coffee when you reuse or you use one of these cups. They're trying to incentivize you to do that, which is great, right? But what do you do when you're on the run and you don't want to carry this with you? So for example, I went to DC for work where I was there for 2 days and 1 night. And traveling in the airport, I didn't want to carry this thing with me. And I started thinking about how many cups of coffee or paper cups I would have used on that trip. And it would have been 5, okay? So what did I do to overcome that challenge? I went to Amazon before taking this trip and found and just Googled collapsible, reusable coffee cups. And I found this on Amazon and it's really great. It's a collapsible cup, it's BPA free, and it's made from food grade silicone, which I don't know what that really means, but my wife says it's good and she's the smart one in the relationship. So it collapses. You see that? It was that big and it expands for a full cup of coffee. This is equivalent to a tall cup of coffee from Starbucks. And I gave it to the person in the airport and she was like, wait, what is this? And she kind of looked at me like I was funny, but it's great, right? But you know what? I know a lot of you guys drink more than just a tall size. So guess what? Grande size, okay? So this is a great tool and this is a great way to help overcome that 2.9 billion cups that are being generated that are going into landfills from Starbucks. And that's just Starbucks. We're just thinking of one coffee brand, right? So I want you guys to think about this. We need to start protecting Mother Nature and we need to start treating Mother Nature like our own moms. So with me, if I would have taken those 5 cups of coffee in the paper non-reusable cups, that would be equivalent to me just taking those cups and throwing in my mom's front yard. Sorry, Mom, I would never do that to you. Think of it that way. By doing this, I'm not throwing trash into my mom's front yard. Let's start protecting Mother Nature. Thanks for taking time to listen to these environmental stats. Now we're going to jump into my experience in the first week of photography class and what I learned. Thanks for stopping by. Boom! Welcome back to the second episode of the Get Into the number 2 nature vlog, where I am documenting my journey on becoming a better photographer. What drove this was being inspired by films such as I mentioned in the intro video, from Free Solo, Meru, all the work that Jimmy Chin's doing, and backcountry snowboarding films made by like Jeremy Jones, and seeing all these great outdoor adventures where they've really captured the moment. And how many times have you guys been in the moment of being in nature and you're like, you know what, I'd really like to take a picture, but you know what, I just don't think I'm going to really capture it, so I'm just going to leave my phone, I'm going to leave my camera, I'm just going to leave it in the bag. Well, I'm trying to tackle that journey and trying to become a better photographer for our trip that's in 20 weeks to Nepal to hike up to Everest Base Camp. And I want to document the trip because I think it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime trip that Casey and I, my wife and I, are taking, and I want to be able to have amazing pictures so that way I can share it with friends and family. But then ultimately, I want to become a better photographer so I can take amazing landscape pictures to inspire people to get back into nature and fall back in love with our planet and Mother Nature, you know, because we need to do a better job of protecting it. So in today's episode, I'm going to really talk about the major step I took that I really needed to take to become a better photographer. Because let's face it, I bought a mirrorless full frame camera, and so that way I can take really good pictures of the mountains and everything. And you start looking through this manual and I'm like, oh my God, what in the world does this thing do? It has like 20 buttons. I'm not kidding. It has 20 buttons on the thing. 5 different settings for phase 1 of settings, and then settings upon settings, and then settings within settings. And I'm like, okay, first things first, I need to have my camera be my main tool, and I need to better understand my camera. So what did I do? I enrolled in a 4-week photography class, digital photography, where I'm learning all the ins and outs of the cameras with DSLR. See, I can't even pronounce the acronyms right. And my camera is a mirrorless camera, which just means it's a smaller version. It just weighs less. Just leave it at that. But so I've already taken 1-week class, and I'm going to share with you today what I learned and share with you some photos that I took for my first week assignment. And on this journey that we'll be on, hopefully we'll be able to see that the pictures are getting better and better and better. And by week 20, when in October of 2019, when we're on our trip, I'll be ready to go. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to show you some of the pictures. Well, I guess before I jump into the pictures, 2 main things that we learned about with the camera. There's a few settings within the camera. The main one setting is it's auto. So where the camera does everything for you. And at the end of the day, our instructor said, if you use this, it's called the dummy mode. Why did you pay all this money for this camera that's supposed to take these amazing pictures when it's in auto mode? And some people were saying, well, why wouldn't you just use auto mode? It takes all the guesswork out of it. Well, what I learned is if you use auto mode, sometimes the light might not be right, or the depth of field might not be right where you can actually truly see the depth of field, and the auto setting will mess up the picture. So you're not truly able to tune it or really capture the moment in difficult scenarios. So like your day-to-day taking pictures of your kids or taking a picture of your pet just in your house or whatever, it may be fine. But when you're out in the thick of it and you're trying to capture the full view of what you're capturing in that moment, and what another word I learned is composition. That's another story. But so you don't want to be in these auto mode, the full auto mode. There's other auto modes that you can do that's a step away from that. And what we're doing is in this class we started learning about those. And the 2 modes that I learned is aperture priority and shutter priority. So what does that mean? Aperture is the amount of light that you let into the lens. So the more light you have in the lens, the more that you can capture. And what's great about aperture is it allows you to create a depth of field within the picture itself. So let me just show you what that means, depth of field with the camera, and I'll show you the different settings that we did. So part of my assignment was to do, for the depth of field, leveraging aperture priority, was to go through and take pictures at different apertures. And with my camera, it goes down to aperture f4 all the way to aperture 22. And basically think of that as aperture 4 is your eyes are wide open, and aperture 22 is you're squinting. So with squinting, you're bringing everything into focus. So in this picture, what you'll notice is, it was Mother's Day weekend, so my mom was in town. We did a fun day of taking pictures in a national park or a place in Colorado Springs called Seven Falls. It was really cool. But anyways, this is a picture of my mom. And so what you'll notice is how my mom is in focus and the background is a little blurred. And that's on purpose because it gives you a little bit depth of field where the person that you're taking a picture of seems closer to you, but yet you can still make out the background, but it's a little blurry. So that's giving you a little bit of depth of field. So what you'll notice is this is at setting 4. So that's where it makes it the most blurred in the background. Another picture that I did for landscape purposes to help give a depth of field setting is this one. Now what you'll notice in this picture, to make it where you can really see the grand scheme of the mountain itself, but you can see how far away the mountain is, it allows you, or with this depth of field, again, aperture 4, this little plant here, I think it's called a yucca, I don't know. My mom's gonna laugh at me because I forgot what it's called. But anyways, you can see how this is really more focused here. And then it brings in the depth of field of the ground in front of you. But what you'll notice is the background in the mountain is just a slight blur. So that way it makes it where you have a depth of field where you can kind of get a good understanding of seeing layers of the landscape itself. Now, if you want to bring everything into focus, you go into, this is the same picture of f22. So what that does, it's like squinting your eyes. This is what my instructor said, because if you squint your eyes, why do you squint your eyes? So you can bring things that are further out into focus. So you'll notice in this picture, the plant in front's not really that much in focus in. It's still in the picture, but you still get a depth of field. But you'll notice that the mountain is more in focus. The plant behind it's in focus, as well as even the sign, which when I get good at editing, I'll learn how to edit that out. But that's an example of aperture priority within the camera itself. And so what does that mean? So the aperture, you set the aperture, and the things that are going in auto is your shutter speed. Because depending on the aperture you're at, the shutter speed will be set so that way it can capture the amount of light in the time frame that it needs to make it a better, clearer picture. So that goes on to the second thing that we learned. We learned about shutter priority. So this is the opposite. So this is shutter priority. And why is it important for shutter speed? Because the slower the shutter is, the more likely your subject is going to be blurred. So because it's slower, it's letting more light in, right? And if it's faster, like 1/1000th of a second, it's very quick. So you can capture things in motion. And our instructor told us that 1/1000th of a second is like trying to capture something at 70 miles an hour. And what's really cool is like, well, so if you're going to try to get something at 35 miles an hour, what should the shutter speed be? 1/500th of a second. You just divide it that way. So I thought that was cool because I was never good at math. But so kind of go into more examples of what we learned. Adjust your aperture dynamically so that way it's setting it. But what you'll notice in this picture, you'll see the water is frozen. So this is at 1/1000th of a second. And you see that the water is frozen. So it's really capturing that moment, right? Okay. So now going to a slower shutter speed. Why would you want to go to a slower shutter speed? Well, because the slower shutter speed is going to give you that ability to blur things. Like you've seen cool things where the light is blurred going through the background, or the water is really blurred and it's kind of gives that mystical look. I tried to capture that same moment here. Again, this is week one. And you can see where the water is actually a little blurred, and it gives that blurred look, and it's not showing the individual dots of the water. And this was a little bit hard to do because it was in daylight. You'll notice is that we're at ISO 400. That's a whole nother game that we're going to start learning in later classes. But the light was too bright and my pictures are overexposed. So that's why it's a little bit hard to see. But that's a real good example of showing the different shutter speeds and what that can provide to you and what that is. And so that's what I learned this week. As we go more and more on this journey, I'm going to share more and more pictures. And I'm going to probably become a better video editor because I've never done that before. And I'm videoing with the new camera. So it's a lot of fun. But thanks for stopping by and listening. And ultimately what we're going to start doing is starting to, again, my goal is to become a better photographer, be able to capture the moments better. But my main goal is to really get people to be drawn into nature with some amazing photos, but I also start educating on little things everybody can do, little daily habits to help protect Mother Nature, because we need to, because nobody else is doing it. Well, people are doing it, but we need to do a better job. And how can we do it better, each individual, in an easy way to do it? Anyways, thanks for stopping by, and we'll have more of these going on. So we're 20 weeks out from our trip. We'll have another video next week. Get into nature. Why? Because we are here. Take care.